Good morning. It's Vaughan. It's lunchtime. It's Vaughan at Westcote Bell Pottery in La Have, Nova Scotia, Canada. I have had a lot of people mention that they're beginners and they're having trouble centering and the beginner stuff. So I sympathize completely because it took me 3 months to learn how to throw on the wheel. So and then it clicks, the eureka moment. But anyway, I'm going to do a beginner's pottery throwing tutorial. So I'm going to throw 5 balls of clay into cylinders, and then just for fun we'll change the shape. But I just want you to, just see all the tricks about throwing and centering, and then throwing a cylinder. And here's a little tip as well. A lot of bats, when you put them on the wheel head, if it's an older wheel that you have, the pins wear out, the little metal pins. So you should make sure that your bats are not loose on those pins, because as I can throw on that kind of bat, but as a beginner it will really put you off. So I just re-drilled this bat. I'll hold it close. There's the pin, and it's a little worn. And if you look there, there's one that's re-drilled, and it's really tight on the pins. Let's hope it goes on there now. But you can see the difference, all right? And that puts you off. So make sure if you've got a bat that's loose, this one is, just get rid of it. Let's put it somewhere else. And then try and find one or re-drill one that is actually, let's just wet the wheel head too. Because when you put this bat down, if there's any dry clay on the wheel head, that will really put you off too, because it will mean the bat isn't actually flat on the wheel head. So just go over that wheel head and just really scrub it, just for about 20 seconds, whatever. Just get rid of any sort of lump of clay, because that will mean this won't sit flat on the wheel head. And then and this is not varnished underneath, so I'm going to get rid of the water now. These ones are varnished on. It's actually a countertop. I got them free. But anyway, and then I had to cut circles. But anyway, so I'm going to put this down with the holes, so I get one of them on the pin. Okay, that was hard. This is a newer wheel, and I drilled this to fit an older wheel, and it was still a bit too tight, so I just re-drilled it. Because this is a newer wheel, the pins are actually less worn out, so they're wider. So that's something else you just got to anticipate. So, okay, let's get you a really good view here. All right, look at that. You're closer than I am. I gotta have a drink of coffee first. Here's an old design of mine, fish mug. All right. Okay, so make sure that your clay, as a beginner, is rounded. Make sure that your wheel head that you're going to throw on is actually moist but not wet. All right, so you don't want it running with water. You want it with a sponge that, if I can squeeze it, I can barely get some water out, but there's some there, and then you just pull it over and it dampens your wheel head. So when you stick this down, make sure there's no water in that location, but this is damp, and then you hit it right into the center, and it will be stuck. If there's any water underneath it, it will move. All right, so what's the first thing you do? Wet both hands, and then as it's turning, place your hand over the top and just press down a second, just to seal it to the wheel head, and that's pretty sealed now. Now, here's something that you're going to be shocked if you're a beginner, how hard you have to press to actually make this do anything. So obviously you need to get an idea of how much you have to press before make it change its shape. So if you put your hand over the top and it goes flat, then basically you can see a little difference. If not, you have to press even harder. If you want it to actually change shape and go taller, put your hand to the side like that and just push in, and you can see with your little finger pressing in, it changed shape and became more of a hockey puck. All right, so that's just pressing like that. Now here's another tip. if you have trouble changing its shape because you can't press hard enough, put your wheel next to a wall. This is a solid wall here, and I've just pushed this so that I can stick my elbow in that wall there, and then dribble some water on your clay, and just now push that pressure on, and your arm cannot move because it's being wedged against that piece of wood, the wall, and so you won't be doing this with your arm as you're trying to center. It's wedged in, and so just position your wheel so you can time it or space it so your hand is exactly on the piece of clay while the elbow is stuck right on there. And I'm also resting on the splash pan right here. So this arm is really solid. So water, wedged in like that, and you should be able to even, like I'm just bragging now, but I can center that piece of clay without even the other hand involved. All right. If I really want it to center, then I have to put my thumb down too to make sure that that is actually sort of as centered as you possibly can. It's not perfect because I'm not using two hands. But anyway, now, my friend broke his arm and had to throw one-handed, and that's, how we figured this out a long time ago. That was a friend of mine called Glenn Burton. I think he's in Guernsey or Jersey. Anyway, but all right, so what do we really have to do? If you're beyond that point and you can center, to do it, let's make it off-centered again. It's doing that. Your hand should be going in on the side. Your other hand should be over the top. Now, some people throw like this, surrounding the clay completely, but I always do it like that because I like to be able to see the clay as it's going around. I'm not putting pressure on yet. So basically, I can tell what it's doing. I can also feel what it's doing in my hands, but it's good to be able to see as well. So the first thing you're doing is sealing it down. It's stuck to the wheel head, but you've got a wobbly bit of clay. So what do? Hands both have to be absolutely wet. You put your left hand in, you put your top hand on, and you put some pressure on with both hands, resting your elbows on your knees or on the splash pan, and you put some pressure on just to see what happens. If you want it to go flat, you put more pressure with the top hand. If you want it to get tall, you let go with the top hand and you push in with the side hand, and that will actually make it taller. If you want it to get really tall, you could do this, which is called collaring or coning. Coning is before it's hollow, actually, and that will make an ice cream cone. And then side hand stays with its little fingers right on the bat head, and my top hand is coming down. It's drying out, so let go slowly. Always let go slowly, and always apply the pressure slowly. And you come down like that, and let go slowly again. The little finger, all the way to the heel of the hand, is where I'm touching the clay there. And on this hand, it's the same. But this one's on top and this one's on the side. And every time you come in contact with the clay, you drag some clay off. So you should be able to center fairly quickly. Otherwise, you're losing your clay. Anyway, so it's off center. Let's do it again. It's wobbling. Water, pressure down, and then in from the side. The little finger is dragging on the wheel head, and when you feel like you got no wobble, you let go slowly. So just get more water, let go slowly, get more water, come back in, and then let go slowly as soon as you feel like there's no wobble. And you can tell that there's no wobble. If you do it with your hand, you can tell, but if you put a tool on it like that, and the tool bounces backwards and forwards, you know it's not it's still wobbling. But look at that tool, it's steady. What about on top? The tool is not bouncing up and down, so it's centered. All right, so what do we do next? And if you didn't have enough strength, remember you stick your elbow into the wall and come in that way. All right, so to put a hole in, you have to feel the point where there's a sort of, the clay is spinning around your finger on both sides, and you can feel that point, and then you put a little dimple in it and go down until it feels like it's just getting a bit tacky. Let go slowly. Get some water again. I'm doing this really slow. It should go really fast, but you just put your hole in so that basically until it feels just getting tacky before it gets sticky, and then you let go again, and you go down again. So this finger is just feeling for the point where the clay is spinning all around my finger. right? Now, you got the hole in. Once you get down there, I'll move the other finger out of the way so you can see. You go down and then you pull to the side like this, towards your left hand, trying to keep the height stable and stationary, so you're not lifting your hand up and you're not lowering it further down. You're just bringing it across as a horizontal. And then what I always do is I then go back to the furthest point of the wall away from me where I'm sitting, and I bring my finger back in from the wall inside edge of the wall towards the center point again, and I flatten the wall at the bottom, the foot at the bottom, the base of the piece, so it's totally flat. Because I hate seeing the little bump in the center, and a lot of people say they get this little nipple that sort of sticks up in the center there. So you basically want to keep it flat. Okay, that's everything that you need to do on this side of the pot. From this point on, we're going to go that way. Why would that be? Let me just knock away that sharp point. If you see a sharp point, knock it away. Okay, if you put your fingers on this side and the clay is coming towards you, if you have fingernails or anything, you're likely to dig into the clay because it's spinning towards your fingertips. So you move to the other side of the pot and wet it with a sponge, inside and outside. The clay is running away from you. So all you have to do is a couple of tests for you. No hand on the inside, just do this and put some pressure on and see whether you can make it get a bit taller, and bring your fingers right to the top. Don't stay on the same level. And you can make it collar in, and you can also make it a bit taller. If you leave your fingers for 2 rotations on that same level, it'll get dry and start to stick to your fingers. So when you release, it pulls the clay a little bit. So you're trying to dribble water right on the rim. So see how I hit the rim? And it goes inside and outside. So I don't need to do it here and then in here. It'll just do it right at the same time. Now, if I don't use the outside and I just use the inside fingers, you can actually bring it out again and make that cylinder that it's a bit taller, but basically it's what we started with. So the clay won't go any taller significantly until you squeeze a little bit. So what does the physics of squeezing do? So my fingertips are not flat on the piece like that. I'm trying to say it. So like that. So the clay just kind of squishes between my fingers, but it will go down below me, it'll go up above, and so it's not really guiding it. But if you tilt your fingers from being straight up like that to a 45-degree angle like that, then when you push the clay, your fingers into the clay is going to be directed above your fingers. And so the angle of your fingers are important. Now you can do it just by tilting your fingers from there to there, 45 degrees, that will work, or even 60 degrees, it will work as well. But you can also make sure that one finger is touching the clay there, and then the other finger is ahead of the other one a little bit on the wheel too. And that's just a little bit higher and a little bit further out, away from my body. This finger here is closer to my body than this finger. It will roll the clay over that finger, then roll it over the other finger, and it will be getting taller all the way up. So you're pushing into the clay, making it like a river flow over your fingers. So watch what happens. So the fingers on the inside are going to be right opposite these fingers. And in fact, these fingers, because the foot is actually about half a centimeter thick in this one, I would say. My fingers on the outside will be a little bit below the fingers on the inside. And that actually makes the clay touch these fingers last. So if I put more pressure on with these fingers, it will actually, being the last point that touches the clay, it will make the pot get narrower rather than wider. So let's wet it again. It's a lot of information, but this is the actual physical thing. Fingers touch. I can feel my fingers through the clay wall, and I pull up one rotation. My fingers are the next layer up, all the way to the top. And because the outside fingers are touching the clay last, it stays narrow. And then when you get to the top, you let go slowly. Don't let go fast. All right, so you've got a cylinder. Every time you get a cylinder, every time you get a wall pull, flatten the top a bit more. So you're compressing the top. Once again, as you dribble, You dribble the water right on the rim edge, and so it goes inside and out, and you do the same pull again, except I'm further down now, so this is more like what I'm going to be doing. These fingers are higher up, these fingers are lower down, but they're still going to try and be opposite each other, so the clay at 45 degrees will flow over my fingers. And I've only pulled it high enough so I can still reach the bottom. So dig in with the outside fingers, and you do the pull. So one layer, one rotation, and your fingers are the next layer up. So you're always chasing the sweet spot, which is the bit that still has water on it. Because once you've dragged your fingers over the surface, the water's gone. The water's all on your fingertips. So that's the second pull. All right, and we've got a cylinder now. So basically, if I stick my hand in here, it's going to get a lot wider because my width of my hand. So I can actually just work that bit, finish it off, so it's thin enough. And then using a rib, this is my wooden one. I know you can all buy these pretty much everywhere. Let's see what this one's like. That's my old one. This is, here it is. I changed the shape of this one, and I advise everybody who's studying to do this to do the same thing. Okay, it's the same rib, but my one has been cut. So I simply knock off that sharp edge. See if I can hold this flat for you. I knock off that sharp corner there and round it off, and I feel like this shaped rib is much better when I do that. But anyway, so if you actually take this rib and you simply do that against the surface right at the bottom and put your finger as far down inside it will go without widening the piece, you can then pull the rib up the side wall and make that cylinder. Same again, because I want it to be a perfect cylinder, so I'm going to touch the bottom and I'm pushing out with my fingers on the inside against that rib and make a perfect cylinder. So if it went wrong while you were doing this, there's a few things that could have happened. You could have stayed too long on the same level and it stuck to your fingers, and then when you let go it stuck to your fingers and you're pulling it, so that pulls it off center. So that's when it rotates, and every rotation you're supposed to come one layer up, one sort of level of finger width thickness up higher every time it rotates. So these are the thickness of my fingers. So if I'm starting here, one rotation I should be the thickness of the fingers higher, and then another higher, and another rotation higher. So you're always on a wet spot going up. Another thing that can go wrong is you're too aggressive. You actually push your hands on really quickly in one place instead of gradually applying the pressure and then starting the pull. The same reverse, when you get to the top and it's all centered, but then you let go too fast and you let it go over one point because it's spinning. You let go slowly and you're letting go over the whole circumference of the piece. So that can go wrong. So if they're the main things anyway. All right, so let's get this one. Actually, I should do something with this one, I guess, now I've done that. Okay, if you have a throwing rib, you can use this and just kind of put it on the inside and press with that rib and make it belly. And then let go slowly, you let it to the top. So that's what a throwing rib can do if you can't get your hand inside there. It's wider now, so I can get my hand inside there. This is a metal rib. You can put your hand in, and you can push against that metal rib and really make that belly bigger. I'm just keeping the metal rib in touch with the clay, and my fingers are gently pushing out. And now in the top, I can push out a little firmer and get that little opening that's nice to put your lips on when you're drinking. So the metal rib can give you some nice forming qualities when you're actually trying to shape it to get a nice piece. So it's better than a straight cylinder. And then the wooden rib that I always use is good for digging in to give yourself a place for the wire to go underneath. And then the other end of the rib, and this is why I cut off that sharp point, because I can't get low enough down. I just make a little wedge there, and I've got a foot on the piece without having to trim. So let's get this out of here. So sponge on a stick. This is a really soft sponge. It bends to the shape of the piece. This is why I like this rather than the round ones. It's a really soft sponge. I don't know what it was intended for, probably just for doing the dishes. So you can just kind of drag it over the surface if you want to. You can also just use your fingers like that to kind of round off the edge a little bit, compress the rim down a touch. Use the soft sponge like that. You're not supposed to use sponges with gritty clay, but this is a fine porcelain type of clay. This is the Laguna B Mix. There you go. It's my favorite clay. Alright, so cutting a piece off the wheel. You can keep the wheel spinning, not fast but slow, and just get water all the way around. And then you put your wire with your fingertips on top, and you just hold the wire while it's spinning and let it touch the clay, and now keep it tight and just kind of pull the clay wire through, and it will release the piece and come off. Now that terrified me when somebody showed me how to do that. I thought, oh my god, the guy's a magician and all that. But if you practice it a few times, it's not that hard. Okay, so recap. This will end up being a long video. That was 19 minutes. So I'm really trying to get you over that hump, the magic hump of learning to center. Okay, piece of clay, no areas where it's, oh look at that one, there was one. Make sure there's no gaps where you can get air bubbles or anything. Place it down. You don't need to throw it down, but just place it down over a damp but not wet wheel head. So I drag the sponge over, it's damp, seal it down. First thing you do, make sure it's sealed by putting some downward pressure, not too much, you don't want to flatten it like a pancake. And then the second thing, try this thing I showed you, elbow in the wall, and put your hand down, and just see if you can really kind of change that shape and make it into a hockey puck. And then let go slowly. Put your thumb over if you want to get rid of that little thing there. It's drying out, see, it was sticking to my finger. So it's almost centered before you even bring the hand in. Okay, don't dig your finger underneath a mushroom like I just did there. This is how you should do it. Hands together. Equal pressure until you feel like it stops wobbling. Then you let go really slow. I count to 3 or 4. When I'm teaching, I tell people to count to 3 or 4 as they let go, so that they know they've done it slowly. Feel for the center point. As it spins around your finger, press down. While you've got some water in that hole, pull it out. And if it dries out, let go. It's drying out, so let go slowly. Come back over. Keep your fingers at the right level, so you're not getting too thin on the bottom. Then I push my finger to the outside corner. I even dig my nail in a bit there and pull it back to the center, and it flattens and compresses the bottom. It also helps because I stick these fingertips underneath that little groove that I've made with my fingernail, and it helps on the next pull. But this is what you should try and do, remember. 2 fingers on the outside, rising through the wall. Before it gets dry, it narrows, and keeps it narrow. Keeping it narrow is a good thing, because it's always the clay wall always wants to get wider, so keeping it narrow is hard. Okay, fingertips, 45 degrees. Press in, pull them up. 1 rotation, it gets higher. Get to the top, put a finger down over the top and compress. So you keep that thickness up there, because you don't like a thin rim. It'll crack too easily. It's wet again on inside and outside. Fingertips to the bottom. Dig in deep with the outside fingers. You can slow the wheel down if you want to. You should always keep the wheel speed so that it doesn't wobble. If it starts wobbling, you slow the wheel down a little bit. Never stop the wheel while you're throwing. then let go slowly at the top, put some compression on. Use your rib. I'm going to wet the whole piece. Use your rib. Get your hand in. If you can get your hand down there as far as you can without widening it too much, go down as far as you can before it widens. And then fingertips against the rib, and you try and make that cylinder. So depending on how wide your cylinder is, you can get your hand in there. And then you let go slowly. Hand should be completely wet. And I dragged some water and left it dribble down off my fingers down on the wall. Metal rib now. Push in with the outside metal rib and push against that point where the metal rib is touching with your inside fingers to make the perfect cylinder. And then if you want to, you could even take the rib back down. So you get a nice cylinder. Cylinders are what you should practice on because you can make them do a lot of things afterwards. Alright, so we have a nice cylinder. What can we do with this one? Let's narrow it a little bit and widen it. So we'll widen the bottom, press out with the fingers on against that metal rib. Start to let go with the inside fingers, increase the pressure with the metal rib, and angle it a little bit as you are doing this, and then push in. And there's your little shape. It's a little nicer for drinking out of. And just give yourself a little edge there for your lips to wrap around. Use the wooden tool, dig in. Use the other end of the wooden tool. If you make one that's more rounded like this, you'll get a much better angle. See how this part can get lower down then. And then push in, and you've got that foot that you don't have to trim because it's already there. And then use your sponge on a stick to get the water out again. And I usually drag that sponge on the stick all the way up through the wall. So if there's any bits of clay that are falling in off your fingers, you're dragging them out again. And then just take the sponge and just lightly do this. You can use a leather at this point, but for beginners that's a little tricky. There's a tool that I have also as well that I can use to smooth the rim. But if this is like porcelain and what you're throwing with porcelain, just using a sponge is fine because there's no grit in there that you're going to expose. Alright, so that's another mug that's very similar to the one we did before, a little faster. So that one only took 5-6 minutes instead of 19. There you go. Now here we go with this again. If you don't want to do this, here's the other way. You just pull the wire through and it should pull right off anyway. And that's a little safer because you've got to be able to know what your right leg's doing on the foot pedal. And if you're nervous, you might make it go spin while you're dragging the wire through. Alright. Get it moist, but not wet. Ball the clay, bang it down. Make sure no water gets underneath there. Press it down. Elbow into a wall or locked into your thigh and press with both hands. It's wobbling a bit, so I'm going to get more water. Now I'm tucking my elbows in to my thigh and let go slowly. When it actually, if you're going to be doing it's like elbows should be tucked right in. If you don't need the wall, just rest your elbows on your thighs. Put a stone under your foot if your thigh doesn't lift high enough when you're throwing. A little red brick works for me. Alright, it's spinning fast, so I'm going to put that little dimple hole in. And now it's drying out, so let go slowly. Put some water in there, go down a touch more, open it up. Let go slowly. I'm not going to widen it as much with this one. And then fingertip to the outer edge, pull it back across the floor, and just compress that a little bit. Wet both. Dribble some water. If you can just do it like that, it'll dribble inside and outside. 2 fingers. This time I'm going to push in with the fingers on the inside touching too, so I can rise through the wall straight away. I don't need to narrow it first since the outside fingers are applying pressure. It's still spinning fairly fast. Because it's narrow, it doesn't need to be controlled too much with the speed. Okay, so this time I'm going to put my fingers to the bottom and I'm going to widen it by pressing immediately with the inside fingers. Now I'm going to press with the outside fingers. And come up to the top. Touch down with your fingertips on the top to compress the rim. So we didn't need to do any shaping with the, basically with the metal rib because we got it straight away. Okay, dribble some water on it. Let's see what we got. Right on the rim, so it goes inside and outside. Make a foot. Turn this around. Dig in deep. And then I will move straight to the metal rib. And I've got a belly down there, see? So I'm going to widen that belly even more. Pressing with the inside fingers. Now I'm going to press with the rib and get it in again. Lift the rib off. Raise it up about a 1/4 inch, 1/2 centimeter, and press in again. And then you've got this little ring there exposed that gives you a nice finish to the rim. Sponge on a stick. Dry it out all on the inside. See what we've got. Always look at it. A lot of people throw the mirror opposite, and I've never done that, but I know it's a good idea because I can just, my back is in good shape. I'm 66 and my back still bends. There you go. All right. Water. Spin it slowly. Use a wire. Do it whichever way you like the best. As long as you control the foot pedal, you shouldn't lose the piece. You don't want it to spin fast, obviously. Okay, let's do a tall, thin one. Ball of clay. Dry it underneath. Bang it down. Make sure no water dribbles under there so it slips around. Top hand down to seal it. Left hand comes in. And you press it. Now, if you are still having trouble centering, this is still got a wobble to it. Okay, you can do the coning. So angle your hand and just cone up by pressing your hands together. Be careful not to press through the clay and lift it off the wheel. And you've got a cone. And then press it back down. Dribble water over it all the time. Add water because it should not get sticky on your fingers or your palm of your hand. Then when you feel like it stops wobbling, you let go slowly. Aim for a hockey puck, but try not to get this overhang here because it's basically called mushrooming. So you can get rid of that by pressing it with the heel of your left hand and you get back to that hockey puck. See, gone. Mushrooming is when the clay can sometimes hang over and you'll get a split or a crack around there. Anyway, feel for the center point. When you got it, you can press right down, let go as it gets sticky, pull your finger out slowly, dribble water in, and pull out. The wheel's going about medium speed at the moment, slower than I would normally do it. Let go. We're going to go narrow this time, remember. So the base on the inside doesn't need to be widened too much. So, same again, it's wet. And you push in with your outside fingers. Now, my thumb is right on the rim all the way up, right on the edge of the rim. So it's compressing the rim all the way up. So my fingers are inside and my thumb is right on the rim. So that's another good tip. Because if you can keep that rim squashed a little wider, then it should be easier to control as well. So I can only get 3 fingers in, but I didn't do the first pull too high, so I can still touch the bottom with my middle finger. So that's a good point. Don't rise up too much. Okay, fingers all the way to the bottom, fingers on the outside, press in deep, and then start your pull. And the outside fingers are touching the clay last. because the inside fingers are higher up. Finger down to compress the rim. There's the fingers that were on the inside. All right, you can see where the clay is being pushed over them, the same here. All right, see how narrow it is now. We can do this again, but it'll get wider. But let's see what happens just for the fun. See how it bends out of shape? Fingertips right to the bottom and press down hard with the outside fingers. And now I'm going to pull up. One rotation, fingers 1 finger thickness higher up. And then start to let go because it was thin enough at the top already. Get to the top. Always finish your pull right to the top. Compress the rim. Rib. Give yourself a nice foot so you don't have to trim much. I always do trim the bottoms of mine, but I don't have to. I could sponge them. I used to for years, and then I decided I liked the refining of trimming. And trimming is kind of a therapeutic thing, like throwing. Okay, you've got my foot formed. Metal rib, I'm going to press in deep with the metal rib to push the clay in. I'm not even touching much with the inside fingers. And then drag your inside fingers up along the rib. And then push in with the edge of the rib at the top, so you give that little corner. And then starting just a touch, half a centimeter higher up, you dig in again and you give yourself that double little rim thing there. It's like a molding at the top of a wall, basically. It finishes off the wall. Sponge, inside, grab all the water out. Drag the sponge up the inside wall so that you know you don't have any lumps of clay left in there. It's so easy to forget things and, not check the inside of a piece when you're putting the handle on and everything. There you go. So now we have, and here's another little tip. This rib could be used to give yourself a double foot down there. So you give it more of a crown molding at the bottom of the piece too. See, you've got that double ridge down there. Water all the way around. You don't need to spin it. You can just kind of drag the wire through and it will release. Sometimes you might have to pull it 2 or 3 times. Different clays release better than others. Push it onto your fingers like that, and then place it on a bat that you've got conveniently located right next to where you're throwing. Clean the wheel. We'll do a really wide one this time, okay? No, oh look, there's some water that sneaked in on me. Drag it off. Push it down. Bang it down. Okay, so basically, elbows tucked onto your thighs. The wheel's going pretty fast. If your thigh is too low, put yourself on tiptoes on your leg so that you can actually keep your arms on your thighs. You can rest on the splash pan, but that will cause nerve damage in your arm. This arm is resting on the splash pan. I have nerve damage in this arm around here from years of doing this. All right, so down, up, down. This is just wedging on the wheel at this point. Just compressing the clay, pushing it up. But that's good exercise to try. Make sure you've got a nice hockey puck. No overhang down here. Fingertips in. Find a sweet spot. Press down, get some more water. Pull out to the side. A bit wider with the foot this time. Compress the bottom. Run your fingers from the outer part of the wall, the inside of the wall, towards the center again to compress that on the inside. Now, the wheel's going fast, so I'm going to slow it down because I'm making a wide one this time. So, wide foot start. Pull up a normal pull. It's dragging, let go slowly.
As soon as you feel a drag on your finger, you've got to let go. Slowly. Water again. Push in with the inside fingers and the outside fingers there. I'm pressing with the outside fingers, but the inside fingers are pressing out harder than the other ones. And you come up. When you get to the top, you let go slowly and put that finger down over the top there to flatten it. Same again. Let go slowly. Compress the rim. Alright, so we've got a bowl, but it's going to be a mug. So foot, point in at the bottom, get the clay off it. This goes in there just a little bit higher up. So we've got our instant foot, so we don't have to trim much on it. Clean it up so you can see what we got. Metal rib. These bend, so you can do that with them. And you bend it, and then push against that curve, and keep your hand stable. So I'm resting on my right leg. Dig the corner edge of the rib in, let go slowly. Up a tiny bit higher, and let go slowly. It's starting to stick to my finger. I should get some more water in there. I hate to do that since I'm just about to take all the water out, but if it's going to be sticking to you, you've got to dribble some water on it. Don't try to push it with, once the clay is sticking to your fingers, you've got to let go. Alright, so we have a bowl that's going to be a mug. Get your water out. This time you don't use a sponge on a stick because it's so wide. Fold the sponge over the rim. You can use a leather if you like to do that. This is B-Mix, if I mentioned that at the beginning of the video. Alright, so we have a nice, it's going to have a little handle here sticking out, but I rarely do forms like this. And these ones, it's a good idea if you actually don't take them off the wheel unless you're very confident. I'll take it off just to show you what happens. It's a good idea to have some spare bats, so you can just put another bat on. It's still good. Pull the wire through, put it onto your fingers, and it's bending a little bit because it's so wide. It's still not too bad, but wet the bat where it's going to go. I'm not going to try plonking this one down. I'm going to slide it on. There we go. Alright, so that is 5 coffee mugs to be, but I won't do this video for trimming because it was really meant as a beginner's video. Ooh. It's like doing yoga. Alright. This is meant for just beginners centering pulling a cylinder video, so I won't go into trimming. We've done that in other videos. So if this helps, and if there's anything else that I'm missing out on, because there are lots of things, and everybody throws differently. Some people throw spinning anti-clockwise, some do it clockwise and all that. I can only spin, do the centering anti-clockwise. I tried centering with it spinning clockwise. I can throw, but I'm not good. But anyway, just post your comments and let me know if it helped. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye. An evening on March 21st at Crescent Beach in Nova Scotia. This is why we moved here. There's only a couple of people on the beach and it's 15 degrees centigrade.